for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemplis.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Perth November 2024 agenda briefing session. I formally declare the session open at 5 p.m. and I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia. I pay my respects to elders past and present. It is a privilege to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar land. And CEO, can I ask you please to recite the prayer?
Almighty God, under whose providence we hold responsibility for this city, grant us wisdom to understand its present needs, foresight to anticipate its future growth, and grace to serve our fellow citizens with integrity and selfless devotion. And to thee be all blessing and glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated, everybody. Thank you. As is standard and customary, I'll advise that in accordance with Council Policy 1.4, this meeting is being live streamed to the world and the recording will be made available on the City's website following the meeting. Which then brings us to attendance in the rather lonely state that Councillor Leeser is sitting in to my right. In attendance today are Councillor Clyde Bevan, Councillor Raj Doshi, Councillor Liam Gobbett, Councillor Victor Coe is not with us. Councillor Victor Coe is not with us. Councillor Catherine Leeser, Councillor Steve Weller. So, Deputy Lord Mayor Bruce Reynolds is an apology this evening, and Councillor David Gonsalves is an apology this evening also. He is ill. There are no elected members. Actually, is he an apology or on a leave of absence? No. Oh.
I wondered what that was.
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
No, the shadows.
What was that, Nine?
It was the lights blowing.
Oh, okay. So I was correct the first time. Deputy Lord Mayor Bruce Reynolds is an apology, Councillor David Gonsalves is an apology, and Councillor Victor Coe is absent. I'll remind all councillors to please submit any applications for a leave of absence prior to next week's ordinary council meeting. In addition, I welcome the Chief Executive Officer, her fellow officers, and any members of the public or media in attendance. Lord Mayor's announcements, I will try and be brief, but last week, together with Councillor Liam Gobbett and Councillor Clyde Bevan, I attended the reciprocal visit to Kagoshima City, honouring the 50th anniversary of our sister city relationship, and a visit to Tokyo and other cities. It was a very useful visit, and we will provide more information of our extensive itinerary to elected members at an elected member engagement session. But I wanted to thank the teams that organised our visit, including from the Perth office of the Consul General of Japan. 2 days in Kagoshima, which included attending the Kagoshima Festival. We met with the Mayor, his fellow councillors, and were treated to the hospitality of the Ohara Festival, which is the local festival in the city of Kagoshima. We were acknowledged and welcomed by the people of Kagoshima, and I know I speak on behalf of our councillors when I say it was very easy to see the respect for which Perth and certainly the state of Western Australia and Australia are held by the people of Kagoshima. And as we mentioned, this followed a delegation of almost 20 coming from Kagoshima City in July. So it was our pleasure to be able to reciprocate. Also, during our time in Kagoshima, we met with Kagoshima University, who are very keen to attract future students both to Perth of their own and reciprocally from Kagoshima to Perth, and in particular a focus on STEM studies, and they expressed their gratitude for the partnership with UWA's Centre for English Teaching, which has really enhanced their learning. And as of today, we're actually working on some arrangements between our universities here and the University of Kagoshima, which we look forward to being able to bring you more details of. From Kagoshima, it was Tokyo, which included also Hitachi City and Yokohama. In Tokyo, we had the opportunity to visit some of our most significant corporate trading partners, including, but not restricted to, those companies including Tokyo Gas. Also, we visited the Tokyo Gas Research Centre at Yokohama on our final day. We visited Irabaki University, the Carbon Recycling Energy Research Centre, which is in Hitachi City, and then also had visits to Mitsubishi Industries and to companies that have head offices here in Perth, or rather large offices here in Perth, Marubeni and Impex. Impex is worth mentioning. They have a staff of 1,500 people in their Perth office. The Perth office is not their headquarters. Their headquarters is in Tokyo. They have more people in Perth than they do in Tokyo. Such is the significance of their presence and the relationship with Perth and Western Australia. We're also very pleased to meet with the chair of the Japan-Australia Business Cooperative Cooperation. It's a funny name, I know, but it's a very significant visit that they will be bringing to Perth in October of next year, when around 800 delegates from around Australia, but 400 Japanese business leaders will be coming to Perth in October for the 62nd JABCC conference. And included in that delegation will be the Mayor of Kagoshima, who will be coming back, the Mayor of Minato City, and the Mayor of Hitachi City. I think what struck all of us was the significance of West Australian resources, and in particular gas, and how 42% of the energy needs of Japan are provided by natural gas from Australia, of which 80% comes from Western Australia. And our final day, I think I mentioned, was in Yokohama, and we saw the Sustainable Solutions Centre. And if you need a bit of entertainment on a Friday night, I suggest ringing Councillor Gobbett, asking him out for dinner and letting him talk you through the 4 hours worth of learnings that we got. To see what they're doing with hydrogen and carbon management is quite incredible, and obviously too detailed to repeat here. It was a very worthwhile trip. I will say this too, that at times the value of sister city relationships in our community and in local government has been questioned, and we understand it being questioned. But I also am very proud to be able to say, as I have said previously, done right, these sister city relationships can be vital for not only the sister cities concerned, but also the states and countries that they represent. And it was a very extensive itinerary, an itinerary that has opened up significant future potential for both Perth and Western Australia. And we're very pleased to be able to represent not only our country, our state, but also the capital city of Western Australia on this trip. And we will be able to provide more information to our elected members, as I mentioned, next week. So thank you for listening. And again, thank you for supporting what was a very, very important trip. Okay, with that, CEO, I'm going to ask you if you could take us through, or have there in fact been any disclosures of interest received. This is item 5.
Yes, Lord Mayor, but before I list elected members' interests, I would like to inform the meeting that the administration has identified that item 11.1 affects approximately 19,500 or 97% of the City of Perth ratepayers, and is therefore considered to be an interest in common for the purposes of the Local Government Act 1995. Elected members have been advised that because of this, any financial or proximity interests they have because of this item do not need to be disclosed. The following interests have been disclosed: Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 11.1 for consistency and completeness, as she is a councillor on the Heritage Council WA. Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 11.2 for consistency and completeness, as she is a councillor on Heritage Council WA. Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed a proximity interest in item 14.2 as a close associated person owns a property directly adjacent to Claysbrook Cove.
CEO, that's excellent. Now, I've got a question for you. Are there, we're 6.1, public question time. That'll be held at the ordinary council meeting next week. So 6.2, here's my question now. Do we have any deputations tonight?
Yes, Lord Mayor, one deputation has been received in relation to item 16.2, 2024 council and committee meetings.
Thank you. And that is from David Lim, who is speaking for the recommendations in item 16.2. Mr. Lim, good evening. Lovely to see you again. Thank you for being here. Can I just remind you as you come forward, David, there is a 5-minute limit for deputations. Have you timed it out? You've sort of gone through. Did you practice at home? Check the time?
Not exactly, but yeah, I've got my points there. So,
okay, all right. Well, just try. I'll give you a little 4-minute warning in case we're getting close. And so if you could try and keep it to 5 minutes for us, please. And we're just looking for your address and then away we go.
Okay, so David Lim, Wright Street, Perth, 600. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening about the item. The city is doing an excellent job with its council meetings, having attended my electors' annual general meeting in January 2023 and February, the council meeting February 2023. I've been impressed about how inclusive the council has been embracing interactions with the public and being supported by the administration in providing detailed and clear briefings in agenda briefing sessions and ordinary council meetings. So I support council setting meeting dates, and I propose that council debates on measures to enhance public participation. Firstly, I propose that the council schedule meetings later with a start time of 5:30 or 6 p.m. The City of Perth is the only council in the metropolitan area to have a meeting start time of 5 p.m. Based on my research, all other councils have later start times, namely 5:30 p.m. Queen Anne and Subiaco, 6 p.m. Mosman Park, Cottesloe, Fremantle, East Fremantle, Rockingham, Canning, South Perth, Wanneroo, Cambridge, Swan, 6:30 p.m. Melville, Kalamunda, Victoria Park, Belmont, Mundaring, Joondalup, Stirling, and 7 p.m. Claremont, Bayswater, Nedlands, Coburn, Armidale, Gosnells, and Serpentine, Jarrahdale. While it can be argued live streaming supports a 5 p.m. start, it does make it harder for members of the public to participate, especially if in person, if they do full working days or have later work start times. Yes, there are advantages for the current 5 p.m. start time for both council, administration and members of the public. For example, personally, I have attended in person a City of Perth meeting, then a City of Nedlands meeting. However, despite being able to beat peak hour traffic, it would be great not to have to rush to get to a council meeting and have to rely on live stream to fully engage in council deliberations. Also, finding a car park and gaining access to Council House via an exiting admin, staff member or security make it hard to get to Council chambers on level 9, which can be an issue. All these activities take time, even with customer experience teams still present at reception until 5:30 p.m. A later start time would help alleviate some of the public participation issues. Secondly, I propose the council consider holding meetings on an alternative day other than Tuesday. The Local Government Act gives councils great discretion at setting meeting dates, and this encompasses what days of the week meetings can be scheduled. While a vast majority of metropolitan councils hold meetings on Tuesdays, there are councils such as the Shire of Serpentine, Jarrahdale and City of Swan that hold meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays. Lastly, I propose that council schedule at least one meeting at an alternative time and or location. I believe public participation would be greatly enhanced in this way. While researching this item, reviewing various councils' November agenda briefing papers, I found that the City of Joondalup holds an August meeting at 12 p.m. to promote participation of high school students. Wouldn't it be great to have today's agenda briefing session early in the day as part of Seniors Week? As to an alternate location, having a council meeting outside Council House would further promote public participation and interest in furthering council matters. While logistics would be a due consideration, perhaps the city would consider its options in connecting to the western side of the city in this way. In conclusion, setting council meeting dates is important, and getting the balance right is essential in terms of accommodating for council, administration and members of the public. A later start time, an alternative day as opposed to the standard Tuesday,
4 minutes, Dave.
and holding at least one meeting at a different time and or location are some measures the council can consider in fostering easier and greater public participation. Thank you.
David, thank you. Very well done. And thank you for the kind words. And we can see from the tone of your presentation, it's not a grievance as much as it is a suggestion. So
Yep.
obviously very happy to take that on board. And we're going to have the opportunity to ask each other questions of the administration, and we will work through this. Just a couple of things that I'll happy to offer. And I'll remind elected members that if you have questions on this item, of the administration to wait, please, until this item is tabled in our agenda tonight. So we did in our first year, we tried a midday or an early afternoon, and the feedback actually was that it was harder for people to get here. It was something that we experimented with. We've also found, and we talked about varying start times, and the feedback was, I think where I'm heading with this is that you could change, but then it's not going to suit some people. The 5:30 or the 6 o'clock won't suit as much as it might have the 5 o'clock. So we have experimented a bit, particularly in the first couple of years of the new elected membership. But the feedback was that the continuity of 5 p.m. on those set Tuesdays was preferred. That doesn't mean that it stays like that forever. We obviously get the opportunity to discuss and debate that amongst ourselves this week and next week, but your feedback is appreciated. And so for you, you're here today.
Yep.
Was it hard to get here?
Well, I had to leave work at 4:30, and then I had to go from Osmond Park to down the freeway, and then you get a congested bottleneck in the city, Wellington Street off ramp. Then Forest Chase, you get a bottleneck as well.
Thriving city, that is, Dave. Thriving.
Thriving city.
Thriving.
Yeah. So I managed to get here 5 to 5. So,
Okay, well done. Up that time tomorrow out of interest? Did you have to go?
I've got some flexibility at work.
Good,
so, yeah.
good.
So, yeah.
Just one further question, out of interest. This is really for my own benefit, to be honest. But you said you went from one City of Perth meeting to one a Nedlands count.
Yep.
Did you have one above the other, or was there one that you sort of thought they put on a better show?
I have to be diplomatic, I think.
You can tell me offline if you like, or perhaps send an email. Are there, councillors, are there any questions for Mr. Lim? Councillor Bevan.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Lim. I think what you've put forward is very, very good. Is there a particular time, as you being a ratepayer, would suit you best? What would you choose?
Well, 5:30 probably would be better, I think.
Okay, I'm thinking the parking is free after 6 o'clock. Would that?
Oh, yeah, that's true. So, yeah, but, you know.
But that's something we need to discuss. You would suggest.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, 6 p.m. you still have to get to this here before 6. So
Yeah.
And city, the parking, I think you get some grace period, like maybe 10, 15 minutes before 6 o'clock, where you might not have to pay with the parking app. But yeah, it's just a matter of logistics, really. Yeah, and then the traffic. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it's important that we do have people from the city here as guests. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. A bit of additional information from me, Mr Lim. So historically, Monday nights weren't the night for council meetings because that was the night that public holidays would fall if there was a public holiday. Thursdays were late night shopping in the city, although every night is late night shopping now. It's up to the stores whether they stay open or not. And Friday, you want to come in on a Friday night for a council meeting? What do you reckon? Councillors? I mean, we'd do it, of course. We're here for the ratepayers, but would that be your preference for a Friday night?
Wednesday?
Okay. Well, now, there was no sort of fixed rhyme. I guess Tuesday or Wednesday were the blank dates, and Tuesday night was considered council night around the metropolitan area, and that's been the tradition. What else can I tell you, just to assist? Well, we'll ask questions of the admin. I've got some questions when we get to that point. Is there anything else for our special guest tonight? You're going to stay and watch the rest of the...
Of course, yes.
Oh. So you're one of our favourites, Mr Lim. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
We will deal with that as we get to it on the agenda. No other deputations, CEO?
No, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Cheers. Okay then. So items 7, 8, 9 and 10 will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting, pardon me, next week. So we'll move to reports. And as we move through the reports, I noticed Councillor Willard's got his nameplate up too. So well done. Another step in the permanent direction. As we move through the reports, councillors, if you've got any questions in relation to these items, the opportunity will be arising soon. So firstly, item 11, Planning and Economic Development Alliance reports. 11.1 is the draft Building Heights and Setbacks Local Planning Policy. Councillor Leeser had some questions with notice. Councillor, any follow-ups or councillors, any further questions? Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. They have been answered very thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, there's a new, and the Deputy Lord Mayor who's not here, but he also has a new nameplate. Okay, thank you. Councillors, any other questions? No? Okay, let's move then to 11.2, the proposed designation of West End Heritage Area and draft West End Heritage Area Local Planning Policy. Councillor Leeser, questions on notice, follow-up, or councillors, any new questions?
No, nothing.
Nothing from anybody? 12 is Community Development Alliance reports. 12.1 is the Riverfront Market Trial for 2024-2025. Question from me for the administration. The 6-week period, the March to April, just an indication of how and why that sort of period was selected?
Lord Mayor, it's primarily because the events period will have closed by that stage. It's also a period of fine weather across our city, touch wood, and is a time when our next major activation really kicks off in April. So we see that as a window, and for many of these activations and opportunities, we are really looking at filling events and activations in the shoulder period. So we see it has a sensible placement after the Christmas and festive season, but also before we move into our winter offerings.
Okay, very sensible. Pleased to see that one going forward. Is there any other questions from any councillors on 12.1? Councillor Doshi first and then Councillor Willard.
Thank you, through you, Lord Mayor. So with the riverfront markets,
Councillor Willard, can you just turn your mic off? Yeah, there we go, thanks.
where exactly are we thinking of having these markets in terms of location?
So that would be at Barrack Square.
And for, in layman's terms, that is the Bell Tower forecourt.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Willard.
Through the Lord Mayor, I see that the recommendation is for a fit and fresh or brunch club theme for this market. I'm just wondering if that relates to fresh fruit and veg, or is that going to be processed food at these markets? And I say that because there is quite a need for the people that I talk in the community for a central market that provides fresh fruit and vegetables in the city.
CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will pass this on to the General Manager Community Development, although before that we are mindful that we do have the markets or the fresh food offering in East Perth on a Saturday morning, which is why the Sunday offering is quite attractive. But if I could invite the General Manager to add some context, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. The idea of these markets is definitely a sort of fitness and health-oriented food offering, as you've mentioned. It's less about a fresh food market that you would see at some other markets, and more about ready-made meals, but not a processed one. So healthy, vegetarian, vegan options, smoothies, that sort of offering at this market, aligned with more retail vendors that are leaning into the fitness sort of trend. So that would be themes. The specifics we would work out with the providers in terms of the exact offering, but that is the idea.
Thanks, Councillor Wellard. Councillor Gobbett? Councillor Bevan?
I have a question. What happens if someone's offering some deep fried food? Are we going to say, no, you can't be there, or is it still open?
I wonder if that's been thought through. It's possible that it hasn't been.
Well, some deep fried food can still be healthy, I'm sure. I think, as the General Manager has indicated, the offerings, we invite providers, and so we would hope that in targeting certain providers, they would come with some healthy alternatives, but equally, it really is having a mix of offerings, but the focus being on mostly healthy.
Yes, Councillor Dosh. Oh, was there more? Councillor Bevan, did you have something else? Councillor Dosh, and then back if we need to.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to ask around the fit and fresh market concept. Have you engaged with local fitness gyms and things? Because a lot of them now have food options and programs and things. So what kind of engagement has taken place in the local community to be a part of this program, please?
Yep, I see you.
Thank you. If I could invite the General Manager Community Development to talk to the consultation process that was undertaken as part of this exercise.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. For the feasibility study, the focus has been on looking at what the consumer may want. So the focus was on businesses in the area and residents in the area. The way that this would operate is we would have a central provider who would then engage based on the theme of the markets with the providers that you're mentioning. So we would be engaging with local fitness providers and other retailers based on the theme, should this be approved. Thank you.
Thanks, GM. Councillor, were you coming back in, Councillor Wellard? Yes, you were.
I was coming back in. Thank you very much.
Great.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Just conscious that Barrack Square is surrounded by a number of existing cafes and food venues. I'm just wondering if the city was to set this market up in conjunction with those businesses and incorporate them into this theme so we can complement their business and not take business away.
CEO.
Thank you. I'm tempted to answer, but I'll provide the General Manager Community Development the opportunity.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, yes, we will. We have already engaged with businesses around the area who are in support of this concept in these markets, a strong support from them. So we will take the opportunity to engage with them on how they can contribute to this offer as well. Thank you.
CEO, thank you, GM. CEO, you had something to add?
I did, can't help myself.
Is it on the fresh side of the debate or the fit side of the debate?
I'd like to think I'm both.
Yeah.
But no, particularly in relation to businesses in the area, I think always these sorts of markets actually do enhance the offerings more broadly, because not everyone is looking for a food van type offering, so it introduces. We've also had some discussions with some other businesses in that particular area who find it very challenging, particularly on a Sunday morning with foot traffic. So we think the flow-on effect to existing businesses will be significant. It will bring people to that precinct on a Sunday morning looking for something to do, and it is the intention, and has always been really behind this approach was that ultimately people will come in for their Sunday morning cup of coffee, healthy food offering, maybe something a little bit unhealthy occasionally, and then move into the retail sector. So we've also spoken to our retail providers in the CBD, and they're also enthusiastic to think that, one, we're trying different alternatives and approaches to bringing people into our city, but also to have them then come up from Elizabeth Quay up into the CBD.
I might just add, because I can, that we should be careful not to. I'm not wishing to preempt a decision of council next week, but we should be careful not to overthink this. This is a 6-week trial. We know there's been huge demand or interest in a markets in somewhere in the central city area, and I think our administration is to be commended for bringing this forward. Now, in 6 weeks. Good sample size, what works, what doesn't work, location good, food mix right, but we're away and racing. And that's the sort of city that we said we wanted to be. And we've listened to our community and we've had this brought forward because the community have said we'd like to see a fresh type of market in our city. And so I'm really pleased to see it come forward. The other thing I was going to say has just gone out of my head. So it's a good thing Councillor Doshi's hand is up. Saved me. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. It is a fantastic concept, and I remember a few years ago it was done pre-COVID as well, so it was really busy. However, going to many of the access and inclusion groups here at the city, that particular spot is always a very difficult one for people. So do we have provisions and things in place so that that space will be available to as many people as possible for that trial so that it's more inclusive?
CEO.
That detail, I might invite the General Manager Community Development to respond.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, we will work with the market provider, the central market provider, around the logistics. That site is preferred despite we do recognise the challenges. However, it's a hard stand and it's got the infrastructure and power and everything that we need. So we do liaise directly with the Access Inclusion Advisory Group on our event planning and the logistics and the details. So we will absolutely do that for this one and make sure we put those provisions in place. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, GM. I notice, for the record, Councillor Coe has entered the room, and perhaps if anybody else has questions as to the various merits of deep fried food or otherwise, they might direct them to the doctor, who has some expertise in this area, unlike the CEO, I would have thought. But that's okay if you can contribute to the discussion. If you can contribute to the discussion, why not? I say I've remembered what it was I wanted to say, Councillor Wellard. He says, looking in your direction. I was first an awareness of the vitality of that location first came to me by the Perth front runners with the mass start of the event down there. And in all seriousness, what a great spot it is. It's an underutilised part of our city, and the Perth front runners and other events, but certainly the front runners that I've been there and started with the community, it just shows what could be down there. And I really like this. I like this trial. We get to see, again, and we'll save that for later, but we get to see what it can be. Thank you, Councillor Gobbett. Noted. All right then, anybody else? Yes.
Lord Mayor, I'd just like to ask, were there any other areas considered, any other sites? Because I see this as being very popular and growing to being a good size, maybe outgrowing this site. So do we have any other sites we have considered?
Thanks, Councillor Bevan. Good problem to have if we get to that. CEO?
Thank you. There are numerous providers or opportunities across the city, and I think even last weekend or the weekend before we had some markets on Supreme Court Gardens. This being city-led is slightly different, but I'll invite the General Manager Community Development to comment on the possibility of future growth and really after the 6-week trial, what we might do.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, we have, as part of the consultation process, spoken to Dev WA, who do hold a market down at Elizabeth Quay as well, and they do have interest in expansion. So I think post the trial, as the CEO has noted, there are opportunities to look at how this would be expanded to other sites or collaborations. I think, as I mentioned before, one of the benefits of this site for a trial at this stage is not only it is the hard infrastructure there, whereas it's a lot more costly to try and do this on a reserve or bring that infrastructure in. It's also tapping into the foot traffic in and around the ferry wharves and that kind of tourist trade as well. So I think for the benefit of a 6-week trial, we don't want to go too far in terms of how much we would spend on infrastructure, but if it is successful, then we will assess the impact of it and consider whether other sites may be more viable.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, are there any other questions? Thanks, everybody. Let's move then to 13. That's Infrastructure and Operations Alliance reports. And 13.1 is CP 2.12 Asset Management Policy Review. Any questions, councillors? 14 is Commercial Services Alliance reports. 14.1, Review of Council Policy 2.7. This is Property Performance Investment and Disposal. Councillors. 14.2 is the Review of Council Policy 3.4, the allocation and management of the boat pens in Claysbrook Cove. Now, if there are any questions from councillors, Councillor Leeser has declared a proximity interest and would be required to leave the chamber. So just get an indication, councillors. There is. So General Manager Alan Mason gets called into action for the first time tonight. Councillor Leeser, take your time, travel carefully. Very good, Alan, at this, isn't he? Well done. Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On page 118 in the discussion, item number 7 says this access for private boat users. Does that include commercial party boats? And if it does, how will we regulate the usage of the pens?
Thanks, Councillor. CEO.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Could I ask the General Manager Commercial Services to respond to that question?
Through the Lord Mayor. That is correct. It could include party boats, but at the minute we would exclude any party boats from in the Cove. And I think you've also got to recognise there is very limited access into the Cove currently until it's redeveloped. So in fact, we've only got one commercial operator in there who very seldom uses that allotted boat pen.
Can I just say I'm very concerned for the residents in that area. It would seem to me that would be a good place to drop off some of these crayfish boats that have been converted into party boats because they're not pulling up in front of restaurants and so on at Barrack Street Jetty, but they're pulling up to a small car park at the Cove there and with their loudspeakers and PA system.
Question, Councillor.
Do you think this would be disruptive to those tenants in that area?
CEO, through you to the GM.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. General Manager.
Through the Lord Mayor, as I said previously, there is actually no access capability for a party boat in there currently. Once the Cove is redeveloped, then we'll review the policy. But currently the policy does set out that any interested party, any commercial operator who'd want a long-term licence up to 3 years would have to apply to the city. And we've currently got an assessment over that, and we wouldn't allow party boats.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Okay, we'll go. We'll invite Councillor Leeser to return to the chamber if we could. General Manager Mason, quick on his feet. Look at him. GM to my left, Rebecca, if you could just open the door. Thank you. Item 15, Corporate Service Reports, and 15.1 is the monthly financial statements for September 2024. Any questions, councillors? 15.2, Corporate Service Reports, is Schedule of Accounts Paid for September 2024. Councillors? 16 is Chief Executive Officer reports. 16.1 is appointing a councillor to perform the functions of the Lord Mayor. Do we have any questions? I can go first. CEO, perhaps you could explain the need for this item.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. This, I believe, is prudent and good administration. So ultimately, I would point out that this particular proposal is for 3 months, and it is in a circumstance where if for some reason our current Lord Mayor was to be on a leave of absence or unavailable, the current Deputy Lord Mayor steps up into the role. If for some reason both the Lord Mayor and the Deputy Lord Mayor are unavailable, it provides us with access to a councillor who could serve as the Lord Mayor during that absence. So as you can imagine, there are times when circumstances present, unpredictable, needing a timely response. I say again, this is for a 3-month period. And it would enable continuity of our business operations should the circumstance rise, which I'm certain it won't, but just in case.
No, fair enough. And so that makes sense. Can you explain the 3-month part until the 1st of April 2025? So why 3 months?
I might invite the governance manager to respond to that particular provision.
Sure.
Through you, Lord Mayor. So the intention is that the period would be from the 1st of January until after the state election. That's where the 3 month is taken from. However, this position can continue if, for instance, you were successfully elected to state.
Right. And I suppose then the question is, would the person who is in this position for that 3 months, if there was a scenario whereby they were required to continue to perform this sort of, for want of a better term, a deputy's role, a deputy to the deputy, would it automatically be that person, or would the process that we're going through now come back to council? How would that work? So this is for a 3-month period. At the end of that 3-month period, if we still need this function, how does that person become the person?
Well, there's different options available. In the legislation, the provision exists for the CEO, after consultation and with agreement of 2 councillors, I would and could actually appoint a person to the role. So this could serve for a period of time, after which there could be a different approach adopted. So we could equally not undertake this process, which, just to explain, is mirroring really the local government reforms, in the sense that the rationale for the appointment of Councillor Leeser being that as far as the process for our Deputy Lord Mayor process. So we've just gone through a process. It has a flow-on effect to utilise, similar to the Local Government Act reforms. Equally, this doesn't have to occur this way. It could be if the need presented after consulting 2 elected members, I would make the decision. I think, again, as what we're looking for here is continuity of business.
Okay. All right, councillors, I've got some more questions, but are there any other questions in the meantime? Councillor Wellard.
Yes, through the Lord Mayor, I suppose I'm still a bit confused on the time frame. So just reading through that, the 2 scenarios are, of course, that this role would be in position, or would the scenario be that this role would be in position should the Lord Mayor become a state member for the government, in which case it would be much greater than 3 months.
I think I would like to take some advice on that, if you don't mind, because the actual paper has a specific date. So I'm not certain, and maybe the governance manager could give us some advice or take this on notice. I think with a very specific date, I think we would need to do another process, but I'll take advice.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Currently, this intends to appoint an acting, a deputy, if you like, up until the state election. And then should we have a vacancy, fulfil that role as well, noting that council can bring this back and change it at any time.
So again, no, and there's a bit of clarity lacking there, isn't there? So this before us, this says from the period 1st of January 2025 until the 1st of April 2025. That's what it says. So if the current Lord Mayor is no longer here, what happens after the 1st of April?
I think if we could take this on advice, please, Lord Mayor. I think the intention being this is for a set period of time. I'd like to take some further advice on post the April, and particularly I think the way it is worded, it only takes us to the 1st of April.
Yeah.
So I think we may have...
Or could it be that actually you don't need to do that because this is covering a very specific period, which makes sense. The Lord Mayor, that's me, I can speak on his behalf, has said publicly lots of times that he intends to take a leave of absence over this, roughly the period covering this period. And so that makes sense. You would put a backup in place during that time. He may or may not be successful. If he is successful, off he goes. And then you would bring a paper back to council, I assume, to then work out what you're going to do as the backup to the Deputy Lord Mayor then.
Correct, Lord Mayor, because we can't make assumptions about what may or may not be the outcome. So I think we would need to take some advice. I think having that date was intentional. So it is only up until the outcome of
That's
state
right. So
election.
the clarity that I'm trying to add here is what we are considering is a measure for a 3-month period. A 3-month period. And then at the end of that 3-month period, if the trigger that we all are talking about happens to happen, then you'll bring something back before council to contemplate how you deal with it after that. Is that correct?
All the legislation provides for the CEO to consult with 2 councillors and to make a determination if the occasion arises that it is needed.
Yeah, okay. All right, but to be clear, what we have in front of us, what we're going to consider it at the ordinary council meeting next week is what is before us. Councillor Leeser performing the functions of the Lord Mayor if both the Lord Mayor and the Deputy Lord Mayor are unavailable, unable or unwilling to perform the functions of the Lord Mayor during the period, but not all of it necessarily, during the period 1 January 2025 until 1 April 2025.
That's the intention. However, Lord Mayor, I will take some advice to ensure that the intention is actually what the recommendation is saying, just to ensure and alleviate any doubt.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any other questions?
Just one more from me, Lord Mayor. Given the recent media reports from the Premier's office, would it be better for the 1st of April date to be 2 weeks or 14 days post of the actual election date?
I see, given speculation that the state election date could be moved. Wow, wouldn't that be something?
I think that would be a very wise amendment in the circumstances and with the level of uncertainty, at least as at today, it would be prudent.
Yeah. Having said that, the date for the state election, I happen to know it off the top of my head, is the 8th of March. Yes, so actually 1st of April gives you 3 weeks leeway anyway.
As I understand,
and maybe that's why it is the 1st of April, is it?
Need to take some advice. I think also it really does depend on the outcome of elections. Sometimes they're not always known immediately. In addition to that, I think if there was agreement, the extension can go beyond a week for extending a state election as well. So I think it could be, it's something to take on advice. Maybe between now and next week it might be clearer as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wellard, anything further?
No more, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, anything else from anybody? Okay, well, let's move then to yes, Councillor Bevan.
It just seems strange that two councillors can make a decision for that position as against the, or maybe against the rest of council. I just find that to be rather unusual.
So what's the question?
Is the question, is that unusual?
Yeah, it's not really, yeah. Look, I think, how about I help Councillor Bevan out? I think the question he's asking is, why is it that way at that point?
It's contained within the legislation and specifically under 5.35, who acts if no mayor, president or deputy is in existence. And it goes through under to say a person has not been appointed under Section 1, the CEO, after consultation with and obtaining the agreement of two councillors selected by the CEO, may perform the functions of mayor or president as the case requires.
Yeah, no, I think that's understood, but I think the missing piece at the moment is if we appointed somebody for this 3-month period and it ended on the 1st of April or whatever date we came up with, does it automatically go to the method that Councillor Bevan has just raised, or could it come back to council like it is coming to council now? Because I think it's a fair point from Councillor Bevan. Why does it then go to that method that is very rarely used?
Yes, so a paper could be brought forward with an alternative approach to appointing a deputy, I would imagine. Could I confirm that with governance, please?
Through you, Lord Mayor, yes, those are the options for having a councillor act in the position of Lord Mayor when both Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor are unavailable. Council can make determination, or the CEO in the process you described can do so.
So I think people are going to wonder, and probably councillors are going to wonder, so why wouldn't you vote on it? Because that's how we normally do these things. So what's the answer to that question?
We did vote on a Deputy Lord Mayor position at the last council meeting, and Councillor Leeser was the second candidate for that. So there has been a process recently undertaken.
Yes, but that was for Deputy Lord Mayor, and that vote has an outcome, and Councillor Reynolds is the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Correct, and I suppose mirroring the local government reforms and legislation where if any of our councillors within, for instance, a 12-month period were to determine, Councillor Wellard particularly, that he no longer wanted to be a councillor, it would actually go to the second highest ranked candidate. So we're following a familiar process enshrined in legislation.
Okay. So, again though,
Yep.
if the councillors wanted, or is there a trigger for a vote, or you can't vote on this?
Through to governance, please, Lord Mayor.
Through you, Lord Mayor. The vote, because you're appointing and not electing this position, the vote is the vote in the chamber.
Right, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, thank you. Let's go then to item 16.2, and that is 2025 council and committee meeting dates. Councillor Gobbett has other council duties that he is off to perform, and we wish him well. So we heard the deputation earlier. Are there any questions for the administration re item 16.2? I'll go first, Michelle. Other than Mr. Lim, has anybody else from our community requested alternate council meeting days, dates or times?
Not to my knowledge, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, councillors. We'll go then to 17, committee reports. We don't have any of those tonight. 18, motions of which notice has been given. They will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week. And 19, matters for which the meeting may be closed. We don't have any of those. 20 is urgent business, and this will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting next week, which brings us to item number 21, and that is closure. And there being no further business, I now declare the agenda briefing session closed at 5:53 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Could you all please rise for the Right Honourable the